Hello from Azelda's Legacy. We thought we might do a chapter in a cup video this morning, but Charlie's feeling a little bit, I don't know if under the weather, but just stuffy head and scratchy throat enough that he's mostly working on things inside or stretching out for a bit and then getting up and going again. So we might get to a chapter in a cup video a little bit later on today, but right now I thought I'd show you a little video clip that's going to be a mixture of homesteading chicken stuff and a Bible lesson. So let me turn this camera around so you can see that loudmouth in the background, and we'll get going. So the little loudmouth that's been hollering is right over there. Oh, now he's going up the ramp. So now he's not hollering. These girls are looking for the last of the chicken pickings, the scraps that I threw out to them this morning. I usually give them some scraps about every morning and throw some scratch grain in at night. Now, this used to be pile. Last night when I dumped this out here because my wagon was full, this pile was about twice that high. But of course, once they got out here this morning, they scratched around in it because there might be one little bite in there. So they've done that. But everything is freshly bedded. And of course, you can see where right here under the feed bucket, they're going to scratch down to the floor looking for anything they've dropped. And of course, we have switched to some new feed that is more of a ground feed rather than pellets. Get it right on my hand here. So they're liking the looks of that, and some of my girls will actually come eat it right out of my hand. It's like, oh, yummy. I like these little Isa Browns for personality, or ISA Browns, whichever way you prefer to say it. I like them for personality. They're smart, and they figure out real quick that I'll feed them little treats anytime I find a worm or a bug or something that, you know, if it's something I'll tolerate on my hand, they'll eat it right out of my hand. And so they're nice little girls, but where's that one? I do not see Chickie Betty right now. She looks like a bag of rags. Oh, she's hiding over here. From what I read on them, they are bred for production. So if you see that wing looking ugly, that wing has looked ugly ever since we've had that bird. She has given us a ton of eggs, but she's just about at the end of her useful production life. Not much meat on her at all, and she's just a rough looking bird because they genetically don't worry about, when they were creating this hybrid, they weren't worried about whether they would regrow their feathers. They were worried about whether they would, shell out more eggs, so to speak. So they live short, they shell out a whole bunch of eggs for you, and then they're done and they die. Something's just not right with that idea. So I will not be acquiring any more of them in the future, nor will I be trying to hatch any of their eggs. Now, these black ones appear to be black astrolorps, and they lay a really nice egg, and they are a proper breed. They're fairly durable. Oh, durable's not the word I want. What's the word I want? They're a pretty tough chicken. Some of them will actually defend the flock even to their own death, and they are going to be prone to forage and rough it a bit. These red ones, I don't know if they are, and see there's a difference. There's one of the Isa Browns, two of the Isa Browns, and over here is more of a true red hen. They're just going up in the coop right, how good the lighting is. Just getting ready to go up into the coop. You've got one of the Isa Browns, or not, excuse me, one of the truly red ones. You got a couple of them in there that are truly red hens. And I don't know if they're New Hampshire reds, Rhode Island reds, what kind of reds they are. I really like some Buckeyes. They tell me that they will forage to the point that they will even mouse better than some cats. So that's pretty cool. So anyway, over the last couple of days, we had some friends pick up some fresh bedding for us, and so I was able to take this all out and turn it. It was pretty thoroughly used up to where the bedding wasn't really drying up the moisture. And so, you see where they've scratched down to the bottom there to check it out. So, I reset all of this, going with the deeper bedding after reading some on that. I don't remember enough from when Grandma was doing chickens to know whether she bedded deeply. She probably bedded with straw, because that's what would have been readily available in Blockton in those days. But I don't know if she did the deeper bedding or a shallower bedding and changed it more often. But the deeper bedding, they will scratch around in there if you throw them a little bit of grain at night, or, you know, at whatever time of the day works for you. But I do it at night, the last couple hours before their light shuts off. They'll scratch around and turn that stuff, and you really have hardly any smell. Whereas before, I was getting, you know, quite a lot of chicken poop smell. So there's that I wanted to just ramble through. Now, I pulled all this old bedding out of there, and you can see how thoroughly it looks like it's mostly manure and very little of the bedding. You can see a little bit of the light colored bedding in there. So it was certainly time to. And I have taken it over here across the meadow. This meadow that used to be Granddad's hayfield, and we will end up taking out those areas that have cedars. That's still part of the hayfield that needs to get cleared, but we've cleared a pretty good expanse of Granddad's hayfield, and so it'll get a little bigger. Now, the chickens are thinking about following me. They haven't quite decided to. Somewhere there's a video I did that's called the Pied Piper of Chickens, because they were following me everywhere because I had a little bucket in my hand. So we did that video. But over here is where I'm going to clear enough ground to garden. Now, last year I gardened over there. Can I expand this view, zoom it in? Yes. You see those tires on the ground? Well, when they stripped all the trees off of this, it mostly was down to clay. So we've got some grass grown back in and some weedy stuff. If you keep it mowed down, eventually the weedy stuff will kind of die down. But I did a lot of stuff in tires that was kind of a raised bed, pseudo sort of. And you know what? It wasn't as good as it should have been, but we got a lot of good food out of that, a lot of good produce out of that. So we sure ain't complaining. It was what I could do in a hurry last spring. And with the year as wet as it was, and then it's hot, and then it'd be cold, and then I was impressed that we got some good sweet potatoes, some good potatoes, some good squash. You know, we got some stuff out of it. And then you can see there in the background, again, I'll try to zoom in. You can see there is a pile there that we're gonna burn off, and to this side of it, I don't know if you can pick it out in the video, I guess I'll walk that way, but there's a couple of big logs yet. Big log facing us right above those blue tubs and stuff. There's a big log with the root end of it facing us, and another pile of dirt there. Over beyond that pile of dirt, there's a little bit of pickup load of horse manure still on the ground, and I'm not going to walk clear over there for that. But along with the bales of pine shavings, our friends picked up some horse manure and brought over for us. Well, that's going into the compost towards not this spring's garden, but next spring's garden, or maybe working it in there later in the summer. Working it into some areas, because right now it'd be way too hot for just, you know, throwing on new tender plants. But for composting, rather than trying to build up a fenced area or whatever right now, you can see that I've kind of made a berm along the trees with just dead branches that were laying down, stuff that will itself rot away and compost away. And then I have piled compost up. You might get a better view of it if I come here to the end. So you can see, looking down the length of it, it doesn't actually drop off over there. It's just that I built up to here, maybe about 1.5 feet, 2 foot, depending on the spot. But then I laid down a bed of dirt and compost mix from where I had first started, and then covered that with leaves, and then, you know, layered in some more. Well, I had been working that up to about this tree, so I've kind of got a marker here, and this, from this end, will have that fresh compost worked into it, and the fresh chicken manure that that wagon is full of. So there's that going on. And of course the chickens were out here. Every time I piled it up yesterday, they're scratching through it and knocking it down, and they'll come back over and scratch around, and you know what? It stirs it. It stirs the compost. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Let your chickens help you. Might as well have garden helpers as well as eggs, right? So, this is something I noticed a few days ago when I was out here. I really wanted to show it to you. This is the Bible lesson part of things. See this broken off piece of wood, and you see this tree trunk running about 35 feet down there. I walked it off, so there's about 35 foot. Well, he's dead. He's dead. He fell down because he was dead and he was rotted off. I'll get it around here. Let you look at some of that. That's just pretty rotten. So that falling down was no great big deal. Not surprising. See, his limbs have rotted off and dropped off of him at some point in the past. I don't know if I can get the light right for this today. Yesterday when I was messing around with it, I could see light clear through there. Yep, you can see light down there. Whoop! That's about, a good 15 feet, probably 20 feet away is where that hole is. It's letting light in. So let's just walk down here along this tree. Got some rotted off spots there. I think I'll just swing my leg over this tree and get over on that side. There's that big rotten hole where you can see the light coming through, and you can see how much that's given under my hand because there's nothing holding it up. And look up through there and you can see the light from the other direction. It doesn't look any different. But it's pretty badly rotted out. You know, you could let a 3-year-old climb in there if you felt safe about it, but I mean, that's how much space there is. So, good lot of space. So, come around here to the bottom end. She did not pull out of the ground. He, she, whichever way you call trees, did not pull out of the ground. Just literally broke off from dry rot, and there's what's left of the stump. Break pieces off of it with my hand. I mean, some of it's solid and some of it's not. It's just going. And you can see the bottom end of it. So that's that, you know. Don't know how old that tree was. Standing here where it was, it could have been 60 years old. Maybe a little older. It seems to be right along a lane that was on this side of the hay field here. So it might be a little older than that. But 60 is an entirely possible number because Granddad died 60 years before we started in here to working. Here's the part that's the Bible lesson. You see that little tree he's laying on? Can you see that? And if you can follow it up, the lighting isn't real great, but if you can follow it up, there are actual limbs up there. If I walked up there and looked, there would be buds on some of them limbs. This was a live tree. Look at here. See all them roots? See that root ball? when this guy came down, this big guy came down, took that little guy right out of the ground. Little guy looked like he had been developing some root system. There's a tap root there. Maybe not the big tap root, but there's some pretty good roots there. And yet he came right up out of the ground. So how did that happen? Well, he was growing too close to this great big tree. See here? There's some little buds. Again, lighting is not necessarily with me. There's some little buds on them branches. He was crooked. He'd had some damage to him. Let's see. Follow that limb up and it bends over that way. Been some damage to him. But he had some good roots. He was mostly growing straight up. He could have made a tree yet. He was hanging out too close to this guy. So what does Scripture have to say about it? Now, stop thinking trees and start thinking your own life. A lot of times in life, and some of you kids may not be old enough to remember the TV series Happy Days, but your folks will remember it. Whether they watched it or not is another question, but they'll remember about it being on. There was a guy there named Fonzie. Well, they didn't paint him as terribly wicked or anything in the TV series, but he was always a little on the ornery side, a little on the wild side. And sometimes as young people, it seems just way too exciting and fun to hang out with folks that live a little on the wild side. Maybe they're older than you, maybe they're into some things that really aren't appropriate for your age, or maybe they're into some things that aren't appropriate for any age. And they've got a reputation, but that makes it just so exciting to go chase after them and hang out with them and grow close to them. Close like the roots of these trees were close. And what Scripture says is, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. That's in 1 Corinthians 15:33. And if we go back to Proverbs, there's a whole bunch said there. There's other places in Scripture that there's good verses on picking friends, but these are some that I just quickly pulled up in reasonable amount so that you can see that it is an important theme in Scripture. So starting with 1 Corinthians 15:33, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. Proverbs 13:20 says, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. Well, those roots laying on the ground and this tree being crushed under the bigger one, knocked clear to the ground under this bigger one, he definitely suffered harm. He will not grow again. You can't replant him. He's just done. So he definitely suffered harm. One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. This big tree didn't act like a good big brother to that little tree. He was unreliable. He was dry rotted. He was hollowed out. And he brought this little tree to ruin. Ruined his life right off. That was in Proverbs 18:24. In Proverbs 12:26 it says, the righteous should choose his friends carefully, for the way of the wicked leads them astray. Now we know we're looking at trees. Trees don't necessarily get to choose where they're planted. Sometimes somebody plants them, sometimes a bird drops a seed there, whatever. So trees don't get to pick where they're planted. And you and I don't get to pick what family we're planted in when we're little. But as you're growing up, if you've got good parents that are saying, stay away from those kids, they're going to get in trouble. They're cruising for a bruising. They're riding for a fall. Listen to your parents. They've been around a while. They may not know absolutely everything. They may not be the very smartest, highest IQ person on the planet and all that. You may think, that about them. But I'll tell you what, they've been around a while. And they've seen people get into troubles. And if they're warning you about somebody because they think that person is cruising for a bruising, as my mom would have said, guess what? They might just be right. And they might be seeing some things that you're missing while you're looking at the excitement of this wild friend. So pay attention. Listen to them. Think through what they're telling you and see if they're not already giving you good advice that you just didn't quite want to take. Because those friends can lead you to ruin. They can lead you astray. Proverbs 13:20, I guess I've got it on here twice. It's in two different versions, but I've got it on here twice, so I must have needed to read it twice. Whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. And then I've got one more from Proverbs 22, verses 24 and 25. Do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with anyone easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared. Sometimes that guy that gets angry quick, but people tend to stay out of his way. Sometimes it's, kind of cool to walk in his shadow because, ain't nobody going to bother you if you're his friend. He can knock their block off. But you know what? There'll come a day when nobody else is around for him to pick on, and he'll blow up at you. And it might not be too pretty. And that's one side of it. And the other side of it is, you may learn their ways. You may learn to be this angry person, and pretty soon nobody wants to hang around you. I have some people in my own family that I love dearly, but because they have learned this anger attitude, nobody wants to be around them. And then they always blame the person that really doesn't want to be around them and take their anger out on them. Well, what good does that do? That sure doesn't draw somebody closer to you. So, there's kind of two sides to it. One, you might get hurt, and the other, you might learn their ways, and then you're going to lose all the people you care about. So, that was something I just kind of wanted to share with you, because I was seeing this Bible lesson here just laid right out in front of us. God gives us things like this to learn from, and we don't want to just make up a lesson out of nothing. We want to make sure that lesson is right there in the Bible, and then use these things to illustrate it. And like I said, it seems like the good Lord just laid this right out here as an illustrated lesson. So that's it for today. I'm going to walk around here to this end and leave you with that picture. See if I can back up here enough that you can see both of them. The lighting's not real good, but there's the guy that took himself to the limits and fell down, all dry rotted and hollow, and there's the youngster that he took with him. Be not deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. So, love and prayers to y'all. Bye-bye, and God bless from Azelda's Legacy.